You are listening to the Obstructed View Red Sox podcast, presented by Beyond the Monster.
And obviously pitching, Craig, we all know that. I mean, the Red Sox bullpen's okay. No problem there. 8th and 9th inning, you're in good shape. But you need, A, health, Sale, and B, you need some stuff. Bello was very good, but outside of that, not as much consistency in that rotation. You need some pitching. Starters, I would think, would be priority number one. How about that? What can you tell me there?
No, I think that's accurate. I think I've been pretty outspoken, pretty vocal about the need for us to improve our rotation, and I think that can come through multiple channels. One thing that we need to do is understand how our internal guys can take a step forward. We also need to pursue the trade markets and free agency, and so we're kind of actively engaged in all three of those. And you're exactly right. We need to figure out a way to have more consistent starting pitching.
Now we're back. It's a brand new episode of the Obstructed View Red Sox podcast. That's Craig Breslow. He was on High Heat with Mad Dog to kick off the winter meetings in Nashville. And that's Craig Breslow talking about the need for pitching. And he's been pretty vocal about that. Yes, he has. We're going to get into that in just a minute. I'm joined here by Jamie Gatlin. We're here. We're going to do a little bit of day one talk, not a ton to talk about. So this will be a quick episode. But Breslow, just from that clip, talking about the need to add starting pitching and the from multiple different channels. Dude, you have two ways to do it. You can either sign a guy or you can trade for a guy. Those are the only two ways you can do it right now because the team's not in a spot yet to where they are building and drafting consistent starting pitching and developing that. So your two channels are trade for it or sign for it. Because I keep hearing this guy say channels, and if this was a TV show, I'm about to change the channel. Like, stop at the words and make a move. Just where I'm at.
No, I agree. I mean, unless he's coming up with a new channel, I want to get in on that. But I think we've seen so far the price of pitching is going to be high. I mean, Lance Lynn had an ERA over 5. He got $12 million. Kyle Gibson, he made 30 starts last year. He still had an ERA over 4. So even guys, with 4.5 ERAs or upwards are getting, they're getting $10, $12 million a year. So Craig's going to want to. I think Wade Miley got $8 million. Pitching is not become cheap, whether it's free agent market or trade market.
No, and I get that. And look, like, am I frustrated that the Red Sox have not made a move? Yes. Do I want the Red Sox to make a move for the sake of making a move? No. So I think that those are two completely different thought processes to have when it comes to this team. I want to see a move for a handful of reasons. One, I'm really tired of talking about the same thing. When Breslow speaks, you do have to do content on it. What sucks is that he keeps saying the same thing. So there's only so many different ways that you can put a spin on what he's saying, unless you're physically in front of him and you want to ask him the question a different way. That's where I'm at with that. I don't want him to make a move for the sake of making a move. I don't need him to go and make something of a rash trade that's going to hurt the team. But we've been hearing now for about a month, and he's only been on the job too for a month. So I got to cut him some slack. But we keep hearing, we got all these different channels. No, man, you can either sign somebody or trade for somebody. If you think Garrett Whitlock and Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford can all take steps forward, fine. But guess what? Chaim Bloom said that last year. Alex Corris said that last year. They both said, we have internal guys. They need more help than the internal guys. There are guys on the market that can help you right now. My concern is Breslow said something today to the effect of that he's not looking to just make a splash for like this just one and done type thing, that he wants to make moves to that long term. So my worry is I don't think you're going to get the splash that you're hoping for this offseason. I think you're going to get pieces, but I don't think we're going to get the splash that people are thinking we're going to get. I'm hoping that I'm reading that incorrectly and I'm letting, my mind wander. But I feel like he's starting to set you up for the inevitable of maybe we're not going to sign a Yamamoto. Maybe we're not going to get Blake Snell. Maybe, we're not going to go out and trade for the Dylan Ceases of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I feel like the trade market, we're still, that's still developing, especially the trade with the Cease is going to set the tone for how other moves are dealt this offseason. But I mean, I just want to see stuff start happening at this point. But like you said, don't make a trade for the sake of making a trade. Like, make it if it makes baseball sense to improve the team. We'll see over the next couple days with winter meetings. Today was just the first full day, so I feel like probably tomorrow there'll be more activity.
Yeah, and so I want to ask you this about Dylan Cease because, and I don't want to do it, so I don't want to make it seem like we're just, poo-pooing on everything that Breslow said, but I'm wondering if does Dylan Cease really make sense, or is he just a name that people know and think that they need to get because it's a name they recognize? And I mean it from the respect of, yes, he's made 30 plus starts in the handful of the last couple of seasons, but he had a really down year last year. The White Sox were terrible, don't get me wrong, but is he really worth trading the bulk of prospects? Because he hasn't had that injury yet. And that also does concern me. Is he worth it?
I don't know. That one I'm 50-50 because I feel like in hindsight, they're going to end up overpaying. Like you said, he's not coming off a stellar year. I'm just not on high on him as like half of Red Sox Twitter. I feel like if they're looking for like a big splash, I feel like he would be that in the sense of people know who he is. I just feel like what the Sox would in theory give up would be an overpay for the production they're gonna get back, is like where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Red Sox, it doesn't matter what team it is, whether it's the Red Sox or it's the Dodgers or the Braves, the Mariners, whoever makes a trade and they're going to land premium talent or a guy like Cease or whoever it might be, you're going to pay a lot. Because you were mentioning before, like the $13 million starting rate for the mid-tier pitcher. That's kind of what it is. I mean, that's what Corey Kluber was last year. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Michael Wacha is going to get. Michael Wacha is going to get you the $12 million. I just think that they need an ace so badly, and they need to go and find that. They need to go and get that. Yamamoto presents that best opportunity for it. I just don't want to see this team go out and trade a ton of assets in prospect capital and then have to go and sign a guy who's on a short-term deal. And you're just putting so many eggs in that one basket. They have to, gotta hit a home run. And I don't know where that comes from.
You want to know who I'd like, who I think you'd like too? I don't know if this falls in the home run. I would love Logan Gilbert. I would love if they called the Mariners and found a way to make that work. I think he'd be a good addition.
Well, just to make sure that I think Red Sox fans need to come down to earth for 5 minutes, but Alex Verdugo is not going to get you Logan Gilbert. So I think he could be a part of a deal, but he's not the centerpiece for a team. But yeah, you're going to have to pay. The cost is going to be there. You're going to have to give up one of your big three of Anthony, Meyer, and Teal. To me, out of the three, I guess Marcelo Meyer is the most expendable because I don't like the idea of trading a franchise catcher, because that's what Teal's going to end up being. Hopefully, I think Ruben Anthony, the upside is just so tremendous. I was listening to the Sox Prospects podcast. If you people who don't listen to that show, doing a massive disservice. Those guys do a really good job. I was just doing it on the way into work, and they were kind of talking the same thing of like who's going to get to the majors first of that group of Teal and Meyer, and they kind of debated that back and forth, and it got me thinking in the car of, yeah, Teal's going to get there first because of the college background. Anthony, to me, just has a lot of upside just from an offensive standpoint. Meyer has been hurt now the last couple of years. He's been snake bitten by that. His bat didn't translate too well at the AA level. And I get it, small sample size. Plus, he was hurt. Starting to wonder, like, he's an elite talent, but of the three, it's the odd man out. I would put him in a deal for a Logan Gilbert. I'd put him in a deal to get George Kirby. Guys like Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. I don't know if I would go Meyer there, but I think these are the names we got to start thinking about. But we got to get to a point where the Red Sox have their Brian Wu's and Bryce Millers and just take a look at the Braves. I mean, I was surprised they traded Jared Schuster. I thought Jared Schuster, I thought he was kind of like the centerpiece in their deal. Look at that trade. Bummer. Had a 6+ ERA. That was a haul in the grand scheme of things too for what they gave up. So I know we've kind of like bounced around. It's like a ping pong table here, pinball rather, but I think it just kind of goes to show that the prices are really high and Red Sox need to pay it. And I just think people just gotta have to be uncomfortable with the idea that some of these young kids are going to go, but it's almost like you got to hit the home run if you're going to let some of them go. Yeah. Because you start to wonder, well, player X got traded. What if we would have used those assets to get that player? And that player had a really good year, but we got, the other end of it. I don't know. It's just some things to kind of think about. And we mentioned like in the group chat, I would love to see the Red Sox develop pitching like the Guardians do. You can throw the Braves in the mix. I mean, the Mariners have those young arms, so do the Marlins. But too, when you suck for a long time, you have the ability to draft that.
True. It's that point too. One thing I'm interested to see about over the course of the offseason is, kind of which prospects Breslow doesn't deal, and then which prospects he's willing to, give up. I'm interested to see kind of how that plays out.
I think he's going to be super hesitant on the pitching just because he wants to see what he can toss into the Breslow lab and what will come out of that. I know they protected Gonzalez and Perales, but if a right deal becomes available and you have to move them, I think they would. I do, just even from, just chit chat with some folks. I think that could be something that could happen. I don't know. It's an interesting thought process because the farm system is good and they got plenty of positional players to deal. I have to wonder too. I wonder, is there an appetite to where there's a team that's looking for positional young player depth for their major league roster? Is there a match with a team, maybe not on the level of the guys we just named, maybe the next tier down? Maybe there are these next tier down minor league arms that are controllable, that aren't going to be your 1 or 2s, that are more of like a 4.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your next Nick Pivetta, for example.
Yeah.
Is there does a Blaze Jordan net you the next like Nick Pivetta type arm? And again, I just thought of that on the fly. I wish I would have put more research into it and I could have at least delivered a name for the show. But is that something that the Sox would do where fans would be like, why the hell did we do that? Then it's like, oh, wait a minute. All right, well, that's an arm.
It pays off down the road.
I wonder if that's things they're thinking about. It's just, I think it's gonna be one of those where we're gonna have to be open-minded to be accepting of the fact that the names that we want to hear and see in a tweet may not be the ones that are going to come here, but again, it doesn't mean that a guy like Edward Cabrera can't turn into a 15, 17 game winner. Just throwing it out there type of thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. But I also think too that we gotta just kind of come down to earth too with what and how we view some of these players, because again, like Verdugo, I see his name get tossed out so much. When we talked to Chad Jennings on To The Show, I asked him, would you be surprised if a guy like Alex Verdugo ends up being back with the team next year? And he's like, no, not at all. So hearing that, it started to make me wonder, all right, well, what if they are talking an extension with Verdugo? But then I'm thinking as well, it's like, all right, well, this kid's like a 260 hitter this year. Is he just more, is Wilyer Abreu Verdugo?
Yeah.
But trading Verdugo, the value in a corner outfielder, that's a Gold Glove caliber outfielder that can really play all three positions, but right field was his best. And to show like he played a very good right field, a Gold Glove potential winning right fielder at Fenway Park, one of the most difficult right fields to play in. That adds value. But free agent at the end of the season, run-ins with the manager this past year, and he nosedived statistically, whether he was hurt, whether it was the stuff with Cora, whatever it might have been, he still nosedived. He's not going to bring you back that pitcher that social media is trying to tell you. He's going to have to be part of that, but the young guys you're going to attach with him, that's what's going to make that move. I just think we got to be realistic on what Alex Verdugo is going to bring back to the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah. Well, I feel like outfield too is interesting for them just in the sense of, you have Yoshida, right? You have Duran, you have Rafaela, you have Anthony. And then I'm not just talking about Major League roster, I'm talking about kind of that and prospects mixed in. You have Blyce. You have Ref Snyder under contract for another year. Verdugo. You know what I mean? So I feel like I just wonder if maybe they use that outfield depth. You know what I mean? Given how, we've mentioned Verdugo has been a trade candidate or in rumors. I feel like maybe Rafaela in the right deal.
So I right now personally would not trade. Okay, let me rephrase this. No one is untouchable out of the group you just said. I'm less inclined to trade Jarren Duran because he put it together this year. He was a difference maker in the Red Sox lineup when he was atop the lineup. He turned singles into doubles that most people have no business in doing. He transformed the lineup when he was in it. He was more of a positive for the Red Sox from that standpoint. I would be less likely to want to move him, where some people will cash in on the value. He is coming back from the toe injury. I wonder though if the Red Sox would consider the Verdugo extension, say it's short years, because Abreu has just the higher value, and Abreu can be part of the deal to get you the pitching that you need.
True. I mean, for example, a team like the Pirates, right? I'm just throwing this out there because Sherrington said today that they want outfield depth. Maybe the Sox look at like a Jared Jones, right? Bubba Chandler, Anthony Solmateo, one of the guys that the Pirates have in Indianapolis or in Double-A. And, maybe they call Ben and they're like, you guys want an outfielder to pair with Reynolds and Sawinski. You have some interesting, pitching at the Triple-A, youngish level. You know what I mean? I wonder if maybe that is maybe an out-of-the-box thing that Breslow. That's just one thing when I think of Abreu, especially if the Sox want, young, controllable pitching.
Yeah.
And in turn, the Pirates get, an outfielder that they have under control for however many.
I think I think it's something that I don't mind it. I mean, it's different. it's definitely, I think it's just things to consider. I think it's things to consider. Outside the box type stuff. But I'm fine with them keeping the Houks of the world and the Whitlocks of the world and Cutter Crawford. I think, to me, like, I'd like to see Cutter be Pavetta.
Yeah.
That type of, where he can give that flexibility. I need to see the consistency more out of Tanner Houck. He shows it, and then it's like a flash and it goes away. And Whitlock just needs to be healthy. But, I know Breslow talked about Chris Sale and said he's at the healthiest point that he can be at, or whatever it was. I just don't want to look back on the Red Sox offseason and be like, who are they holding out for? They didn't get it. They were left holding the bag, and this is what they're left with.
I agree.
I feel like that's what the Cardinals offseason was. I feel like the Cardinals went out and they added Sonny Gray, and they added Lance Lynn, they added Kyle Gibson. And they're all like 33 to 36, right?
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't fly here in Boston. Like, if that was the three people that they brought back, people wouldn't be happy with that. I just don't want the Red Sox to end up with something to that extent at the end of it. Like, I'm okay if James Paxton comes back, but it can't be James Paxton and Jordan Montgomery, because I just don't think that's good enough.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I feel like, especially in the Cardinals case, of those three guys you mentioned, I feel like Sonny Gray is the only one that, I would look at and be kind of excited for. I feel like we saw Lance Lynn.
Well, if Lance Lynn's going to keep the baseball in the field, like, he's got to keep it in the park, because he gave up way too many homers. But if you're the Cardinals, you can look at it and say, okay, when he was with the Dodgers, he pitched very well in the second half of the season. Or, I'm sorry, when he was traded. Gibson is going to be able to eat innings for you. To me, would be appealing as like a third guy if the Red Sox went that route. I'm wondering if, maybe, does Marcus Stroman bring any sort of, what kind of juice does he bring? Is it the name at this point? Is he the guy that was the stud for the Cubs pre-All-Star when he made the All-Star team, versus the guy that just was a shell of himself after, plus he got hurt? I think we also got to be open to the idea too. You're not gonna find a lot of 30 start guys, 32 start guys. So if you're gonna get 25 starts from someone that you're gonna pay 15 to 18 million, you know what I mean? Like, they need to be impactful. And I know, like I said, I know this episode we've kind of been all over the place, and that's fine. I'm just kind of thinking, what we just talked about would be what people are sitting around and BSing about with this Red Sox team, and being, like, what are they going to do and all this other stuff. So they definitely got to get pitching. Breslow keeps saying they got to get pitching. One name, though, we didn't touch upon was Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo has been connected to the Red Sox by John Heyman. I'll get into Heyman in a second, by the way.
I've been waiting for the Heyman rant.
I'll get into that in a second. Lugo, though, last season he was 8-7, 3.57 ERA, made 26 starts, 140 strikeouts, 1.20 WHIP, tossed 146 in a third innings. Again, Montgomery and Lugo, it's not enough.
I mean, it's like Lugo, I'm fine with him being like, like the 4 or 5. Like, if he is your back of the rotation guy, I'm fine with that. But like you said, if we come away from the offseason and we're like, one of the biggest pitching we added was Seth Lugo, then I'm like, really? You know what I mean?
Seth Lugo Cutter Crawford is a cheaper Seth Lugo.
Yeah.
You're going to pay $12 million for Seth Lugo, who gave 146 innings. Nobody pitched more than 157 innings. Bayo had the most innings for the Red Sox last season.
I think he was like 140. I want to say.
Brian Bayo threw 157 innings last season for the Red Sox. I'm fine if you're gonna add Lugo. Like I'm not gonna hate the move, but I just look at it like, don't you have like Cutter Crawford can just do the same thing?
Yeah.
So why not go and just say, okay, if I'm going to spend $13 million on Seth Lugo, let's say Lugo gets the Nick Martinez Reds contract, why not just go and dump in another 5 or 6 million more and just get a better arm? Why I know the market's developing and opening up, and Montgomery is one of those guys. Like, I want them to get Montgomery. I think Montgomery is a good piece, but he shouldn't be the ace either. I don't know.
I agree.
Some of these,
I mean, I would love,
redundancy. You have that already in your roster.
I would love if they could add to, like guys you could put in the front, right? Then Bayo's your 3, Sale's your 4 with that. And then, 5, you battle out with Cutter, with Tanner, however you want to do that. But I agree with your point that they need to go out there and add 2 studs. You need to put at the top of the rotation. Because I feel like Bayo saw some good stuff last year, but he still needs to develop a little more. I don't think he's ready to take over that point of being, I'm gonna be your ace. I don't think Brian Bayo's at that point yet. So getting 2 studs, they need to do that.
Yeah, I just don't know where that's gonna come from this free agent list, though.
That's why I wonder if Breslow's just gonna do the trade market.
I think he's not gonna have a choice. He's gonna have to take some of those kids, and you have to go and get a Burns, or you're gonna have to get Bieber. I like him. I think he'd be great, but his injury history concerns me. But you probably get him cheaper, But I mean, looking at,
I feel like Glasnow, you're gonna have to give up a lot, and I don't know if the Rays would want to trade him to, in division. And he has 1 year left on his
to be
deal
honest with
too.
you, I think a guy like Glasnow, I know that the Rays want MLB ready type of players. The same thing, like $25 million for a guy that's gonna walk. Why not just give
And he
25?
has his injury history too.
They even take away that from that. Like, why am I going to trade prospects, pay him 25 million, and then hope I can sign him?
Yeah.
Whereas I can keep the prospects, and I can take the 25 million. I can just go and get the pitcher that's available in the market.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna run out of names pretty soon. You know what I mean? Like, it's Stroman we just mentioned. Clayton Kershaw's not coming here, so you shouldn't even be in the conversation. Martin Perez, Eduardo Rodriguez. I mean, I know they're saying there's no interest, but what happens if you're running on options?
Yeah.
Alex Wood doesn't really move the needle for me. I feel like you kind of have that. Mike Clevenger, people I think would freak out because of the off-field stuff.
Background.
Lucas Giolito. I would go and do the Giolito piece. I'd be okay with Giolito. But again, if you're not gonna be able to get your studs, are you okay with Montgomery, Giolito, and a Paxton? I'm okay with it, I guess. Or do you go a step below that? And maybe it's Giolito and Montgomery, and you add them to the mix of the guys we just mentioned, and you just go and just pound that bullpen and just add even more impact arms.
I could see them going that road too. I mean, I feel like in regards to the bullpen, you already have your closer in Jansen. You already have Elika in the 8th and Chris Martin. I feel like Chris Murphy had some good stretches last year. He did struggle, but he did have some good stretches.
I like Murphy. I like Murphy more so than Brandon Walter. I think Brandon Walter he just doesn't throw hard. You know what I mean? Like 90 to 91 miles an hour as a lefty, and you're only going to be able to face lefties, and the game's not set up that way any longer. I don't know how that works.
Bernardino isn't sneaky good, solid piece.
Bernardino had a good year, but the relief market is so volatile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we've seen Ryan Brazier have a great season, And then we've seen Ryan Brazier suck. You know what I mean? There's no track record now for Bernardino. We just don't know. And I don't want to go and write the guy off. You know what I mean? Like, he had a really, really good year, 55 plus games he pitched in. He was an opener. You know what I mean? Like, he was a really good find. It's just going to be, it's going to be interesting, of just, what's going to end up coming in here and who they're going to acquire. The more I think about it, if you can't go and bring in the Yamamotos of the world and those bigger names, I like the idea of Lucas Giolito. I like the idea of Jordan Montgomery. I like the idea of taking a flyer on Frankie Montas, providing you've gotten those other guys squared away.
How many years? What's the longest you'd go with Giolito?
Giolito, my feeling would be is he's going to want to probably get a 5-year type contract, but I would assume they'd be opt-outs. I would be uncomfortable with 5. I would be like, if he would do like a 3-year pack, like a 3-year at like 45, where you're giving him 15 million per, I guess I would do that. But I haven't really looked at what his numbers would be. I don't know what MLB trade rumors are saying about Giolito on the contract. I would be very comfortable with 3 years. I'd be super uncomfortable with the 5. There would need to be opt-outs.
Yeah.
There would need to be the opt-outs. I don't know. Just not having the ace does kind of scare me, but Bayo can emerge. You know what I mean? Like, can that happen? Who the hell knows? Maybe Sale, by the act of God, he goes and has a crazy year. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things that could happen. So, like I said, I know we kind of bounced around. My little closing thought is that John Heyman piece. He reported that Jackie Bradley Jr. was expected to retire. Jackie Bradley Jr. came out today and kind of poured cold water on it and still weighing his options. I tweeted about it. My gripe was, and it still is that when you're going to report something, if it's an injury, and now I'm going to lump in retirement, I feel like you really should have your ducks in a row. You should really have vetted that information, and you should be right.
Yeah.
There should be no national reporter, beat reporter, whatever it might be, throwing it out there into space, and the player has to come out and be like, "What are you talking about?" Well, yeah, Bradley could retire next week, but he also could not. And it just, there are times I see people and they really go to task with people on social media and reporters, and they give them a hard time for the stupidest stuff. 9 times out of 10, it's because they're tweeting something that you don't want to read, and it's because your team isn't involved in the player that you want. Or he's just nonstop Yankees, 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 Yankees. But he's also a Yankees reporter on a national level. Really thought it was super unprofessional today to go and say, report, you tweeted it, you wrote it down in an article. I would think that you vetted it. You have the ability to reach out to a guy like Jackie Bradley Jr. Hey, Jackie, I heard that you're thinking about hanging up your cleats. No, that's not the case. That's it. But to me, him going and writing and just saying he expected it is more of just like you and I sitting down, bullshitting back and forth at a table at a bar, and some rando behind us hears it and be like, "Oh, I heard Jackie Bradley Jr. might retire," and threw it out there in the space. You can't just go and be a national reporter and just throw something casual out there, especially if it's surrounding someone who might be walking away from the game, that had a respectable career. He was a fan favorite in the market that he was in, and I just thought it was very unprofessional. But I like Heyman. I will still follow his stuff. I like reading his stuff in the New York Post. I will listen to his podcasts at times because he does bring in guests that are, a little. I listened to the one with Matt Holliday on it. Thought it was great. I'm super intrigued about Matt Holliday and his fucking athletic sperm with Jackson Holliday now and his younger son Ethan. who's only 16 years old, and the kid is available for the draft in 2025 and is probably going to go in the top 3. And he's built just like his dad. He's got power just like his dad, but from the left side. He's got more power than Jackson. Like, I don't know what they're eating out in Oklahoma, but they're putting together some good quality baseball players out there. So, but yeah, I'm going from John Heyman to sperm in one podcast.
We're touching it all in this podcast. We're getting every topic.
Every topic. So head on over to beyondthemonster.substack.com. Enter your email address if you have not already done so, and subscribe. You'll get our articles and content that comes out daily. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and check out To the Show, our baseball interview podcast. Really good guests that we've had on there. Just had Chad Jennings from The Athletic, if you want to check that out, with some Red Sox talk on there. Nazan Zanatello, Red Sox prospect. Roman Anthony was on there. Gary Sheffield Jr., just to name a few people, and more guests. So hit the subscribe button plus this podcast here. We're going to do another Obstructed View, depending on what happens, whether if it's big breaking news, we'll have that maybe in a day or two for more of this hot stove stuff. I do acknowledge this episode, we were kind of all over the place, but I feel like when you're just chatting with people about baseball, that sometimes happens. So any last words, any last thoughts before I go and end this?
I would say people just be patient. I mean, you'll hopefully there's more activity when people listen to this, but I'll just say, it's only day 1 of the winter meeting, so stuff can really start picking up here throughout the course of the week, and I'm just hoping that we see some of the big players here come off the board. We start seeing some of those big moves, taking place.